Hi guys, I hope you're all doing really well. It's me. If you're new here, my name is Emily. I am English. I live in Brussels, Belgium. I've lived in a number of countries over the last few years and worked there, so I make videos all about my experiences abroad, travelling and being an entrepreneur. Today is going to be a slightly different video. If you have followed me from the beginning of my channel, I used to make more videos like this, less planned, less packed full of information, and where I would just talk about a topic, and quite often about how I was feeling about something to do with my living abroad, working abroad experience. So I'm stood in my bedroom. The window goes right onto the road and I live in quite a central area. So if you can hear cars, if you can hear like people, then sorry. I have a tendency to ramble. I'm gonna try to stay on topic. Basically, I wanted to talk more about my attitudes toward moving abroad when I first started moving abroad and compared to now. I moved abroad for the first time by myself when I was 20 years old. I was studying languages, and as part of my university degree, it was obligatory for me to spend a minimum of 9 months abroad in 2 countries where I could speak and practice the language that I was learning. So since I was studying French and Italian, I went to Paris first of all for 6 months and then moved to Italy. So, you know, that's quite an intense experience for someone who has not moved abroad by themselves before. To do it twice in 1 year, I guess it's quite an experience. I guess the difference being I had the support network at my university, you know, the bureaucracy and things we were guided through that to an extent by them. They were kind of my safety net. But that was the experience that really opened my eye up to the fact that moving abroad was a possibility for me, and I didn't have to live out my whole life in England if I didn't want to. Maybe there were some other experiences beforehand which also opened my mind up to that possibility, but I really put down my decision to wanting to live my life abroad to that year. That was a huge revelation for me, just in general, about how you are in control of your own life and you can make it what you want it to be. The thing that really prompted me to make this video was something I found out this week. I don't know what you would call it, a theory or a principle, but what it is it's called youth maximalism. It's something I'd never heard mentioned in English before. I think the term is a lot more used in different countries and different languages, but I completely resonated with the meaning behind it. What I understood from the main concept of it is that when you are young, let's say you're an adolescent, you're in your teens, your early 20s, you have very strong opinions, strong ideas, strong ambitions even, and you are unwilling to compromise on them. You're seeing things very much as black and white, all or nothing, and as soon as I found out about this concept, I really resonated with it. I think that a lot of young people can, but I'm someone who's always considered myself as being very ambitious. I never wanted to settle for an ordinary life. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a famous actress, and then, I don't know, I decided that wasn't for me. I decided to study languages and I felt a bit lost for a while. And then this idea of being able to move abroad gave me this idea that I could do something out of the ordinary, extraordinary. And I really clung a lot of my hopes and dreams to that idea of moving abroad. And as I said, that year when I did my Erasmus, when I studied abroad, I started to dream up this idea in my head. And this idea is very close to what I ended up doing, but I think that I can acknowledge now that along the road to get there, I don't know if I do it in the same way now, and I have mixed feelings about that. And I attribute it a lot to this youth maximalism, this idea that it was all or nothing. I had to move back to the UK after my year abroad because I had to finish my degree. But even then, I was really disappointed in myself for not quitting university, because I honestly didn't enjoy university that much. I made a video about that before. And a lot of times I wish that I had the balls to quit university, to move abroad and to go and do what I really wanted to do, which was to start my own business, to work freelance and to live in Italy. And as soon as I graduated, I didn't even wait a month. I was on a plane to Italy. I didn't have a job lined up, and I started trying to make it work. And you know, I've talked all about that whole process in other videos, so I'm not going to break it completely down now. And I will say that I did have some kind of plan. I did have a plan B, and I started going down the route of trying to teach English, but I would always get so disappointed in myself, like, no Emily, this isn't the plan. If you're willing to sacrifice and compromise on things now, then when you're older and when you have more responsibility, if you want to have kids, if you know, all the responsibilities that come when you get older, it makes it a lot harder to really strive for what you want. And so I would be really tough on myself to try and reach this idea of perfection that I built in my head, this life where I was working freelance, I had my own business, I was living in Italy, but I had the freedom to travel. That was also a huge part of it. I wanted the freedom to travel. And so I put a lot of importance and gravity on this decision, and I guess what I want to say is that my feelings about that have changed a lot over the past few years. And keep in mind, when I'm talking about this move to Italy was only 2.5 years ago, and I already feel like a very different person. I'm 25 now, and I really do feel like in the last 18 months or so I've started to transition to a new phase, a new period of my life, and I'm sure that I will continue, I hope I continue to evolve and get new ideas and get smarter and just become a better person. But one of the things that I really feel changing is this youth maximalism. I was working as a freelancer in Italy, but I didn't have that freedom to travel and move as I wanted to. And so about 18 months ago, I quit my main freelance gig because I felt like it had turned into a 9-to-5 job. I felt like it was holding me down, and you know, that was not something I wanted in this idea I'd built in my head. And so I went to try and build this business from scratch. I mean, I had experience freelancing now, but really I was kind of turning around the way I was going about it. And I don't know, that's something I know now, is that there's more than one way to reach your goal. It's not an all or nothing thing. It's not that you have to throw yourself in the deep end and achieve it all immediately. It's okay to take baby steps. But I was so intent on reaching this goal and reaching it as quickly as possible because I felt pressures of, oh gosh, like if I want to have kids by the time I'm 30, then how ridiculous is that? I wouldn't say that I had a plan of milestones that I had to reach by a certain age, but I still felt that pressure, and I was making decisions based on that, which I think a lot of people do, but that's kind of scary. So I feel like I should mention I also had this motto that I'd kind of come up with around the time I was on Erasmus, so when I was about 21, which was always strive, never settle. I felt like a big theme in my life before then was settling. You know, saying like things are fine, I shouldn't rock the boat, I'm lucky with what I have, I shouldn't push for more. And I had definitely taken that viewpoint further than I should have done. I wasn't being honest with myself about what I really wanted from life, at a point where I should have been making important decisions about what direction I wanted to go in. But I was too scared to be honest about what I wanted those decisions to be. So while I think that at the time that motto served me well, I started to imprint it in my head so much that I started to make decisions that were almost reckless. Like when I quit my freelance job, there was no question of why don't I see if I could get an arrangement that was working less time with them. I really wanted to cut off work with that client at that point for a number of reasons, but I think that with not necessarily with the hindsight, but if I were in a similar position today, then I would certainly approach it in a different way. I'm getting sidetracked. The point is that I was clinging to this motto so hard that I was pushing myself further than I was necessarily ready to go. And I think there is something to be said for you're never going to be ready for making big decisions in your life, or rather making big changes in your life. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't act. However, there's also a limit to that. And I think that making that decision, it wasn't a hasty decision, I thought a lot about it, but I don't think I was as prepared emotionally for all the changes I was throwing at myself at once. And also financially, what I essentially ended up doing was leaving Italy, starting my freelance business, and going traveling all at the same time. And I'm sure other people have done that and it's worked out well for them, but it was too much for me. I think it was that experience in, let's say, the 6 months following that, where I really felt a complete lack of stability, complete vulnerability, where I really started to understand why it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself in so many aspects of my life, and that I wasn't fair on myself, you know? And so I've definitely learned the value of taking things more slowly. I've also learned the value of enjoying the journey. It's not about ticking off boxes. It's about the story that happens on the way to tick the boxes, the people that you meet, the lessons that you learn. And that's really cheesy, and I don't think it's something that you can fully understand until something pushes you to understand that that's what life is about. It's all the cliches you always hear. I don't want this video to go in the direction of me just telling you some cheesy quote that's going to solve your life. It's really not. I guess the point of the video today is, if you do feel like you resonate with this idea of youth maximalism, you feel like it's all or nothing and you're going to let yourself down if you settle for anything less than your ideal life, I think that there's definitely value in having a clear idea of where you want to end up, but that only serves as a guiding point. That is not what makes you successful or not. I think that what makes you successful is being brave enough to try things, and sometimes being brave enough to try things means being brave enough to say, this is too much for me right now, I need to look after myself. Being brave enough to make compromises. That's something I still have trouble with it. I still don't like the thought of compromising on what I want from my life. And I think I will still always be an ambitious person. It doesn't make me any less ambitious if I decide that I want to compromise some things, because inevitably your priorities are going to change. I didn't want to live in an apartment a year ago. I wanted to, not be tied down everywhere and be able to go travelling. But I learnt that actually having a base is something that's really important to me and something that I do want. 18 months ago, I hated the thought of living in Brussels, but I realised actually I want to live in the same city as my boyfriend, and that was really important to me. And it doesn't make me less of a person, it doesn't make me less independent to admit that I want to be with him, even if this isn't my dream city. I still have mixed emotions about that. I do like living in Brussels now, but I still think a lot about should I have, not so much should I have stayed in Italy, but should that be a big goal for me in the future? 2 years ago, I never wanted to go back to the UK, and now I don't think the idea of living in London for a year or two would be so terrible, or even maybe another city, like going back to Bristol. I studied in Bristol and I couldn't wait to leave. I hope you appreciate that this video doesn't necessarily have a final point. It's more to start a conversation about something, to talk about something that I found interesting. I always try to share the other side of it. I really do encourage an experience abroad, moving abroad. I think I wouldn't be the same person. I know I wouldn't be the same person without it, and I love being able to live abroad. But I don't want to tie it so much to my identity. I don't want it to be an all or nothing thing. And I want to be able to be fluid with what's important to me, what motivates me, what my ambitions are. I'll still always be the same person. I don't need to have an identity crisis or think I'm letting myself down or compromising too much. I'm gonna stop it there for today's ramble, but I hope this has been interesting. I guess it's a little more on the personal side, but I think it's something that needs to be said. I wish that I probably would have watched a video like this 2-3 years ago and said, like, she's compromising, she's she's settling, she's not striving, this thing that I was so obsessed with for a while. But I hope if you take one thing from this video, it's that that's not true. Part of being in control of your destiny is also not holding yourself up to the same standards that you decided 5 years ago, 3 years ago, even 6 months ago. There's a great quote, I can't remember who said it, but it's that you owe nothing to your past self. Your past self was, what is it, younger and stupider than you. I probably butchered that, but it's so true, and we're gonna make mistakes along the way. That's another thing, don't think you can just bypass the mistakes because they're inevitably going to happen. But I did say I was going to round off this video, so I'm going to end it there. I hope that if this did resonate with you in some way that you'll leave a comment, because it really means a lot to me. I'd love to hear what you think on this topic, if you find it interesting as well. I'll see you guys in my next video. Please subscribe if you found this interesting, if you want to hear more about my experiences abroad. I've got tons of videos on that, and I'll see you all soon.